Thank you for coming. I left the Sun 13 years ago, and I saw a lot of rather surprising things on the paper. But the events of the last few months have blown even me away. I'm not really talking about the editors having sex, because sex is endemic in newsrooms, particularly tabloid ones. What has amazed me is that so many of my colleagues are off to jail. The chief reporter, who I used to sit next to, well, he's not been up for trial yet, but he's probably going up to jail. The tea boy who used to bring me coffee in the morning, he's up for trial at the moment. He's Ian Everton, he's probably up to jail. And the deputy editor, and the editor, and the managing editor who tried to get me sacked, and the editor's husband, all look like they're off to jail. It's well over 50 of them. I wonder if I would have been off to jail soon, if I'd stayed on there. And of course, what they are predominantly going to jail for is either phone hacking or bribing civil servants and cops. And there is one person who is going to jail for criminal stupidity. And just a top tip for you, should your partner ever come up to you and say, darling, could you dispose of this laptop? Well, you don't want to hit it with a hammer, you don't want to bury it, you don't want to chuck it in the river, you have to burn it. That is the only decent way to get rid of a laptop. You certainly do not do what Rebecca Brooks's husband did, which was leave it in the bin in the underground car park where he is recorded on CCTV. Do not do that. So most people imagine about the tabloids that they are awash with money and that they are using this money to buy stories. And they buy their interviews, celebrity wants to come out and they will offer the celebrity, whatever, 50 grand or so. And so just as a little taster, I thought I would tell you about the most money I have managed to spend on a story. This was about 18 years ago when Prince William had started at Eton. And he just had his house photo done in the summer of 95, 96. And this house photo was going to be worth a lot of money. So, even though I was a reporter, I put on my staff reporter. I put on my best suit and turned up at the school photographers, pretended to be an uncle of one of the boys in the house, and said, can I have this house picture? And they said, sure. And they gave me the house photo for 15 quid, which was great. Go back into the offices of the Sun at Wapping, and I am feeling pretty damn good. And I'll just tell you about these offices. They've got double doors with a security pass so that not anyone can get in there. And above the doors is this really strange sign that wouldn't really work at any newsroom in the world, any other newsroom, any university, or any business. It would just seem whacked. But at the Sun, it sort of works. It says, walk tall, you're entering Sun Country. So, with this picture, I'm walking pretty damn tall because I've got Prince William's house picture. We haven't got permission to use it. But I handed over to the picture editor and the deputy editor who was editing that day. He has a slight vibe, something in the air, and he comes over, bustles over, he sees the picture, and he starts screaming and swearing at the top of his head because he knows it's quite a big one. And so immediately they're clearing the front page and a centre page spread for this picture. And then I'm just writing up the copy, and half an hour later, the backbench, very formidable team of journalists on the Sun, come over with the legal manager, Tom Crone, and they say, hi Bill, how did you get this picture? I said, well, it's perfectly simple. I dressed up in my best suit, I pretended to be a boy's uncle, I paid £15, and here it is. And they said, good boy. And so the next day, there is the whole thing on all over the front page. This picture is still in first year of school, and it's the centre page spread, which has been used without permission. Risky, can be expensive. And we're expecting a lot of anger, and for a week, nothing happens. And then, after a week, this little invoice comes through from the school photographers. It says, invoice for unauthorised use of house photo, and then they come up with a figure. And the interesting thing about this figure was you wouldn't know what to charge for it. What would you charge for it? What would you charge for a house picture of Prince William? Front page of the Sun, 5 million readers. You haven't got any idea. Unless you work on Fleet Street, you have no idea what a picture is worth. So, if they'd come to me, I would have happily told them, go in at $500,000. But they didn't go to me, and they just came up with a figure out of thin air, so they just charged 27 grand, which was a complete steal. So that's the most money I've ever had spent on a story. Now, I realise there are some non-hacks here, or people who don't necessarily want to be journalists, and we have got some tasty stuff for you later on, but for 10 minutes, I thought I would explain to you the best way on earth to come up with exclusive stories. Sophie, where are you? You listen. Exclusives are the way that you are going to, first of all, get a job on a paper, and welcome. The way that you're going to get a job on a paper, and when you get a job on a paper, exclusives are the way that you're going to make a lot of money and turn yourself into a star. But exclusives are pretty tricky to get hold of. And I've done some work with papers in South Africa, and I said to this professor there, Leslie was her name, professor at Glynis University, when you're dealing with all your postgrads, how do you tell them how to go about getting exclusive stories? And she says, it's perfectly simple, Bill. It's all about contacts. Contacts, contacts, and contacts. And I say, well, thanks a bunch. That is a fat lot of good for some trainee reporter or somebody who's just starting work on Fleet Street. Because you don't have any contacts. Contacts are brilliant, but contacts take a long, long time to develop. They can take 2 years to develop, which is no good at all for you if you're trying to start work on a regional paper, you're trying to start bringing in exclusives. You won't have any contacts. It's no good to you if you've started work on Fleet Street, on a Fleet Street paper, whatever paper, whether you're on a broadsheet like The Guardian or whether you're on a tabloid like The Sun, you need to start bringing in exclusives. How the hell are you going to do it? Well, this way is absolutely brilliant. It works for any paper on earth. You could go off to Hicksville in America and start bringing in exclusives within 1 day. You might even bring in a world exclusive. No, world exclusive is a stretch. You could bring in front page exclusives, no problem at all, in 1 day flat. It doesn't cost any money. It works on any paper at all. It will work for telly. It will work for radio. It will work for any news outlet at all. It's that good. What you are doing is you are relying on the natural indolence of reporters in the newsroom who spend their entire time having coffee, doing their expenses, reading the papers, chatting to their mates on the phone, and they cannot be bothered to check out their own stories. They will have written a story 3, 4, 5 months ago, a year ago, and they are not bothering to see if anything new has happened. So this is all you have to do. All you have to do is go along to the newspaper library or the local library and start looking through the back issues of whatever paper it is you want to be working for. You're looking through the old stories from 3 months ago, 4 months ago, a year ago for the anniversaries. We love anniversaries. 10 years ago, if it's a big enough news event, the 10th anniversary is great too. The 25th anniversary. This month, you will see in the papers, everyone is going slobbering on about JFK, John Kennedy, being assassinated in Dallas 50 years ago. And there's not much new stuff about that, but now I saw in Metro today a huge feature on what would have happened if JFK had lived. This is going through the old papers you're just giving the story tree another little shake. Most reporters can't be bothered to go back to their old stories and find out what happened. So, twice a year, at least 3 times a year, you will see a story about a woman who has had her 18th baby. Well, all you have to do, 9 months down the line, is go and call her up, because it's odds on that she will be having her 19th baby. Or, if she's not having her 19th baby...
19th grandbaby.
No, not that. She stopped having babies. It's even better. I'm calling time on the damn kids for another year. The guy who is getting divorced for the 28th time. I think that's about the record at the moment. Well, first of all, we want to be going on to this guy, finding out his tips for his marital tips. Nice feature. We also want to be finding out what this idiot is doing now. Either he's going to be getting divorced again, or he's getting married again. It's going to be a good story. Either way, it's a good story. I said this to an executive in Johannesburg. I said, we ought to be going through the old papers, just revisiting these old stories. And this little light bulb goes on in his brain. And he says, yeah, that's a really good idea. Do you know what? I did this story about 3 years ago about these two old dears who were petrified of the day, August the 13th. And the reason was because this was the day that all their family kept dropping down dead on. Mummy, daddy, brothers, sisters, children, and even the pet dog had all died on this same day. So every year, they're thinking, August, I'm going to die on the same day. So all you have to do is go back to these women, as long as they're still alive, and find out, are you still petrified? Yes. Then the next day, obviously you got the follow-up story. Miracle, they survived for another year. This is the very best way of getting exclusive stories. 2 hours of leafing through back issues. Anniversaries, we love them. What it means, though, is that you want to be much more proactive with your own stories. Let's suppose you have done the story a few months ago. You've already got all the phone numbers. And all you have to do is call this person up and say, hello, how are you? What's happened? It will take you precisely 5 minutes. You've already got the phone number. You don't have to go along some other hack or by the way, do not go along to other journalists and say, that old story you did a year ago, I'm going to have a go at it. No, they won't like that at all. You just do it. You present it to the news editors. Much better way of doing it. But with your own stories, you should be checking out these people who've been in the news a year ago, 2 years ago, and you just give them a call. Hi, how are you? What's happened? With me, I was on the Cambridge Evening News, and there was this great story about, it was a tragedy, but still, in news terms, a great story, about a woman who had just got married. And first night of the honeymoon, they're in their caravan, pouring with rain, and the husband goes outside for a pee and gets hit by a bolt of lightning and is killed. So that's that. 9 months later, I call up, hi, how's it going? La-di-da-di-da. She's had the kid. Guess when it was conceived? Nice story. That was only because I had bothered to make the call. So that is what you want to do. If you've done all the donkey work of schmoozing these people and getting all the numbers, all you have to do with these old stories, if nothing else is going on, is just give them a call. What do we think? Not bad. Right. I've got another 20 minutes till we get to the questions, and the questions are always great. But what I like to do at the end is take control and tell you about the shark's teeth. These are the shark's teeth. You can have 2 or 3 or 4 each. I brought them specially for you. Pass them round. You're looking a bit dubious. Yeah, the fossilized shark's teeth. Right. This, I hope, the next bit, will be pertinent for any of you if you're a human being. It does not matter if you want to be a journalist. This is wisdom. Right. I'm going to give to you 3 scenarios. And the first scenario is this. Imagine you are at a party, and on the other side of the room is the most beautiful person who you have ever seen. Now let's suppose that a couple of minutes later, you are now talking with the most beautiful person you have ever seen. Has anyone not been in this situation? Generally, in this scenario, it is pretty tricky because you're not just asking for a coffee, you're talking with obviously the most beautiful person in the world, and suddenly everything gets a bit squeaky. It's a bit awkward. You're trying to be light and frothy and yeah, cool, and in fact, you're very, very nervy. With me, the last time it happened some years ago, I started stuttering. I couldn't believe it. Another scenario. You might not have been in this position yet, but you soon will be. This is another high-pressure scenario. This is when you will be interviewed for the job of your dreams. You're fully qualified, it's perfect for you, it's offering you just a brilliant amount of money, it's going to be great. It is your dream job, but nevertheless, it's tricky to perform when it is a really big interview. You're trying to show how brilliant you are, but you clamp up a bit. I live in Edinburgh, and one of the schools up there is called Fetties. And last year they had 40 students who were applying to Oxbridge. And this was sort of the cream of the students. Only 2 of them got in. And the reason was because, although they were very bright, they screwed up the interview. They clamped like rabbits in the headlights. Couldn't do anything. And the third scenario that I want to give you is, of course, a journalistic one. If you are a reporter interviewing a really big player, you can clam up too. You're trying to be having fun, but if there's so much above you, it is very, very tricky to deliver. So these are 3 different scenarios, but in fact, they are all about the same thing. They are about relationships, and they are about charm and confidence. Charm is a useful little shorthand word for just being able to engage with people. And a lot of people think you've either got charm or you ain't. That you are born with it or you're not. That you're either Bill Clinton at the top of the tree, immense schmoozer, or at the bottom, complete pond life, Ed Miliband. Fantastically awkward human being, despite weeks of training. It still just makes your skin crawl. With dear old Ed, it would not matter if he were coming out with the Sermon on the Mount. People just go, that's the result. Well, what I'm here to tell you is that this business of charm and confidence is a skill. You can learn it. It's kind of like driving a car. Who would you expect to be able to drive a car right off the gun? But for some reason, people think that charm and confidence, you can just have it or you haven't. It is a skill and it has to be learned. So, let me tell you what charm and confidence is not about. You will find a lot of salespeople go on courses, crash courses in how to sell you stuff. And obviously for a salesman, they want to connect with you really, really quickly. And so they're given these sort of shortcuts, but these are nothing more than shortcuts. Some of the shortcuts might be complimenting people. I really like the way you've been taking those notes. Good. Good job. Using people's first names. Salespeople love to use your first name, and they will drop it into the, once they've found out your damn first name, they will be dropping into the conversation every third or fourth sentence, and it is immensely clunky once you realise what they're doing. But using somebody's first name, Sophie, is a very powerful thing. It's a little stroke. What's your first name? Charlie. Shannon. Shannon. Got it. Okay, Shannon, you've been doing a really good job. I've liked it. Third thing we can do as a salesman in order to schmooze you and get you to buy my junk is to give people stuff. Shannon, you've been doing such a good job. Here's a copy of my damn book, Red Top. You'll love it. At restaurants, you'll see this all the time, where they will give you free sweets at the end of the meal in the hope of getting a big tip. And insurance people will give you a free little plastic pen in the hope that you will fork out thousands for their insurance policies. Eye contact. Eye contact is immensely powerful. Guys, I've got information for you. Basically, with a woman, you cannot hold her eyes for too long. You can't do it. Women love you to hold their gaze. Winking can help. Little dictators. Right. Dictators know all about holding your gaze. It's just a little gimmick. But, for example, Hitler. Stand up. This is what he'd do. He loved this one. Yeah, hold on to the shark's teeth. No, we don't want to do that. Okay, Hitler, smallish guy. Better get down here. What he's doing, you need your hand free. Right. Do this. And hold your gaze for about 5 seconds. Try it. Okay, we're going to do another nutty dictator, Napoleon. This is risky. I'm not saying it works every time, particularly with women. It might work. Napoleon is about 5 foot tall. He's going around the troops. This is what I do. Stand to attention, please. And get them by the earlobe. Bon brave. Powerful. Another one. Sorry, this is touching people is a very good way of making a connection too. The elbow. Lovely. Not there. This is much too forward. Anything like that. Elbow is nice. I'll be doing it to you later. Thank you. Good job. These, though, as I'm saying, are little tricks. They are gimmicks. Complimenting people does not work. It's not about that. Is about. It is a gimmick. It's nothing more than that. It is studied. It is not authentic. And we can tell within about 2 seconds flat with a stranger if they're not being authentic. If you've got Ed Miliband with all his goddamn training in the world, and we know it is not authentic. Right, anyone got any good chat-up lines?
Hello.
Hello is not bad, actually. A number of people, though, particularly guys, I'm afraid, pin their hopes on and coming up with a really good shadow man who's going to make somebody laugh. Anybody got any dates? No, anybody got any razors? How about a date? That's what happens in a high pressure situation. You're going to mess up the punchline. Is your name Ritz? You're a real cracker. I'm a love pirate. I come here for your booty. Chat up lines are yet another gimmick and do not work. These things do not work. I mean, what has happened though is that because these things can be taught, a lot of people are saying, yep, this is the way forward. So you will get another very, very awkward politician like Gordon Brown, who got to the top through being a bully, and with him, they realised when he was Chancellor, this guy needs some serious training. And so what they do is they hothouse him, and I think they must have plugged him into plugged him up to the national grid, because what they trained him to do was smile. Buddy, can you start smiling a bit? You always look really gloomy. So he starts smiling, and the result was that over and over again, he has a spectacularly bad piece of news to announce. It's World War III. We're all going to die. And then he smiles. This is a disaster. It is not authentic. It is like these sales techniques. It is not real, and people can sniff it out instantly. It's certainly not the key to charm and confidence. So now, listen, I've got about 5 minutes to tell you the key. This is going to transform your lives. It is pertinent if you want to be a journalist. It is pertinent no matter what your career. If you want to be in sales, if you want to be a politician, if you want to be a lawyer, if you want to be an accountant, if you want to be a scientist, no matter what you want to do, the people who get to the top are invariably the charmers who have confidence. So I think this is pertinent. Also, if you want to improve your sex lives, don't know if that's important, also might help. Right. Okay. The key to, it's taken me 20 years to work this out, by the way. The key to charm and confidence, and certainly being a good reporter, but also life itself, connecting with strangers, and chatting up people is to chat up people. What I mean by this is you want to make it your goal from now on to connect with strangers. You're going to start on a very low level. The 3 scenarios that I described at the start are very intense situations. And what I'm suggesting is rather like learning to drive a car. You start on a very low level. So you are just going to try and connect with strangers who you meet. This means when you buy a coffee, rather than just saying, thanks for my coffee, bye-bye, you say, hey, well, you could do worse and say, how's your day going so far? You're seeing if you can connect. If you want to, when you're going along to buy your paper, did you watch that match last night? You're seeing if you can connect over the telly. When you're going on to Tesco's is great because you've got 4 minutes with the person who's serving you, 4 minutes at least. You're saying, you might come out with something about the news. What do you think about that Andy Murray wanting to have kids with Kim? That might work. You are going to flick any sort of ball you like towards this stranger, and you're going to see if they want to play ball with you, if they want to engage in this conversation. You don't know what it's going to be that's going to turn them on. But if they don't want to talk about last night's telly, or they don't want to say what they're doing tonight, then you're just going to flick them another ball. But what you do know is that whatever you flick them and they flick it back, if they want to talk about last night's telly, the match, whatever it was, then that is going to be the subject that you're going to connect with. And you're going to flick it back to them with a bit of spin on. And you're just doing, it's just like this. It's a completely simple, low-level, non-aggressive situation. Who cares if they tell you to sod off? It's, because they're just, it doesn't make any odds. It's not important. They're not the most beautiful person in the world, and they're not offering you a job. But it is the only way to learn about dealing with strangers is to deal with them. So what I'm saying is you start engaging now on very low-level situations so that when you're sent out, perhaps as a reporter on a vox pop, you have a wealth of experience behind you. You have engaged with hundreds of people. So that when, finally, you're there with the most beautiful person in the world, you will have engaged with perhaps 1,000 people. Imagine if you, from now on, make this commitment to yourself to grow socially, because this is a skill that has to be learned, that you are going to try and connect with every single stranger that you come across, whether it's the lady at the reception or the guy selling you the newspaper in the morning. That will be about 5 people a day. That's 1,000 strangers in 6 months, 2,000 in a year. That is a whole load of strangers. It's the only way to learn. There are no shortcuts. The point about human beings is we are all different. And this thing of social dynamics and engaging with strangers is fantastically complicated because there are all these messages going in through your subconscious. And what's going to work with one person, the earlobe touch, is not going to work with the next. There are certain broad things we know, using first names, looking people in the eye. These are helpful, but the only way to learn it is to practice it. And, so what a surprise, the more you practice it, the more you do it with strangers, the better you're going to get. You're going to have lustrous social antennae. So you'll be aware that this situation is weird. This person doesn't like me. You'll be aware of it and you'll start listening. And then, well, if you don't do this, well, you'll be like Ed Miliband in this swamp of social ineptitude. You might be pretty good, but the only way to be versatile and to really engage with strangers is to practice it. It's a slog. There are no shortcuts at all. It's the same with using the phone. A lot of people imagine that using the phone is dead simple. Just pick it up, start asking questions. It takes thousands and thousands of hours to learn to use a phone properly. And surprise, surprise, this can only be done by using the phone. So in future, when you're having a phone call with somebody, say you're booking a room or a table, or you're speaking to a receptionist, you try and engage with them on the phone. This is the way to learn to use the phone. There are obviously shortcuts to using the phone. Smiling works on the phone. Standing up is a very powerful thing if you're on the phone. But learning to work a phone is exactly the same as learning to talk to people. You have to practice it. There is no other way. Let's see. There it is. Right. We are. Is there anything else essential that I've missed out for you? We're there. I've told you pretty much everything I plan to tell you. I haven't left out much either. Any questions at all? Yes.
Yeah, when you used the rep,
Yes.
was there like any, because I'm filming TV,
Yeah.
and I've watched quite a few films based on true stories.
Yeah.
Did anyone come up to you and say, oh, could I use one of your stories to make them?
Well, generally, we're talking about turning stories into films, news stories into films, and generally, if a filmmaker is going to do that, it will be based on a book And so I've written books, but not based on the news stories that I've covered. But to give you one example of a book, I'm hoping this is going to be turned into a film soon. It's going to be massive. In tabloid terms, one of the great white whale of exclusives is about a guy called Lord Lucan, who you probably won't know, but 40 years ago this story was massive. And for hacks everywhere, we want to know what happened. What happened was the 7th Earl of Lucan was in a very unhappy marriage, and he was nearly bankrupt, and he decided to try and kill his wife. He thought this would be the solution to all his problems, but he botched it, and instead he killed the nanny. It was about today, 39 years ago, almost exactly to the day. And after that, he disappeared, and he has never been seen or heard of since. And all we know is that he had a lot of very rich, powerful, unscrupulous friends who may well have spirited him off to Africa, it seems like. But nobody knows what happened to him. And so for hacks, we want to get this story. And I was talking about it with my publisher. I said, wouldn't it be great if we could find Lord Lucan? And then the penny dropped. I don't have to find this guy. I can just damn well make it up, which is what I did. His memoir, edited by me, Lord Lucan, my story. And I'm hoping that it will shortly be turned into a huge blockbuster. But yeah, so sometimes news stories are turned into.
When you're writing, how do you best go about it? Like, for example, what do you use to put together, or do you use another software?
For writing, just
What's the format?
Microsoft, though for film, Final Draft.
Yeah, but when you're writing,
Oh, in a newsroom.
how do you go about writing?
Well, how do you write a story? Well, you need writing a story is like interviewing. It takes years to learn, and you're just doing it on whatever computer system there is, and then it will doubtless be rewritten by the subs anyway. But the reporters get all the glory. Would anyone else like a question?
You want to watch out, Lawrence?
Yeah, okay. Those are unfeasibly tight trousers. How on earth does one get into them? Chat-up lines do not work then. You're much better off doing, like this guy said, just saying hi. Hi, it's lovely. Hi, how are you? Yeah, I mean, you know, when you have good social skills then you'll be able to come in with a perfect one that is pertinent to the person and the time. Anyone else? Any other questions? Yes, Sophie.
Why did you decide to leave the Sun and become a freelancer in
Why did I want to leave the Sun? What can happen if, with news reporting, as I've been a news reporter for about 12 years, and I had had complete burnout, and I was bored with the stories, and what had happened with me was that I'd gone along to an investiture in Buckingham Palace, which was quite a big thing, and a few, Norman Wisdom and Julie Andrews. Norman Wisdom was getting the knighthood, he's a past-day comedian, dead now, and Julie Andrews and Shirley Bassey were being made dead, so it was going to be quite a big show in the paper. Picture byline. And I was sitting in a cafe in St James's writing up the copy, and I thought, I am bored witless. And if you get that feeling in the newsroom, if news is no longer turning you on, then you have to get the hell out. Otherwise, you are just wasting your life. You know, there are loads of people for whom news is a thrill. Well, you know, they should be doing it. But if news is no longer turning you on, you've got to get out. In any job, if you're bored, you can't be a wage slave. You've got to get out. Anyone else?
I'm kind of trying to form a question. I'm not exactly there.
Okay, well, you form away. Do you want me to form it with you?
Sure. It's just that you said that you quit the Sun 13 years ago. That would be about 2000 millennium.
Yeah.
with the advent of the internet and media convergence and a lot of bloggers added into like the fourth estate, now there's been talk of like, well, in general, I'm not going to quote anyone or anything like that, in general that reporting or newspapers and the like, it's becoming.
We're all goddamn history.
Exactly. Well, not exactly, but yeah, pretty much.
Well, it's possible. Okay, here's another idea. I'm not very good at internet stuff. You lot would be much better than me at all the social media stuff. But the point about news and reporting, which is my particular skill, is that it doesn't matter how the news is disseminated. Whether it's on the radio, or the internet, or on this old-fashioned thing called a newspaper, or whether you are getting the news direct into your frontal lobe, you are still going to have the reporters. Those are the frontline troops who are going out there interviewing the person who's witnessed the murder, or whatever it is, and saying, how do you feel? So you're always going to have frontline reporters. The backroom boys and the subs and everything else, I mean, Rupert Murdoch and that lot can argue, can scrabble around like ferrets in a sack about how they want to disseminate the news, but you're still always going to need a reporter. You're going to, I would say, well, I don't see how you can get the news in otherwise. You are still going to have the reporter who is making this connection with the person who's in the news and getting the story out of them. And this reporter will hopefully have chatted up their thousands of strangers and be not bad at connecting with them. So there will be lots of different ways of getting the news out there. But the business of we are about ideas. That is the primary thing. We're about new ideas, and so it doesn't matter how it gets out there. The idea and the reporter, those are always going to be king. Anything else? Yes.
What would you consider a good client to work with?
A good
Client to work with, like the person
well, the problem. You mean the sort of celebrity?
Yeah. Or even
Somebody good to interview. Well, the problem is that anyone who's seemingly good to interview has been interviewed up to their eyeballs, a politician or a star. They've heard every single question going, and it's really tricky to give them another. Jesus might be quite good. I'd like to have a word with him. Maybe the Buddha. But most of the current crop of celebrities, they have seen it all, they have heard it all, they have been coached for weeks and months on end to be charming and effortless, and they've got all their little stories off that, and it's terribly, terribly difficult to give these people a question that they haven't heard before. And so all you're seeing is just their little pastiche of them being charming, like the people you see on the Graham Norton show coming out with their boring old stories. But this is an act, and it's very rare that you can actually engage with them. So the current crop of celebrities or politicians, yuck, I wouldn't want to engage with them at all. It's not authentic. Yes, anyone else? Yes.
My question regards to the Royal Charter. Do you think it's practical of the coalition to select a voluntary system over statutory when the general elections are nearing?
Yeah, good idea. Well, I mean, the press is obviously going to want voluntary stuff. And so it would be a good idea for the coalition, if they wanted favourable press coverage, to say, yeah, boys, you can do whatever you want. Let us put it like this. I was just talking about this with Jackie. Hugh Grant is unlikely to get a good review for any film he does anytime soon, because he's seen as this total pariah. And if you're seen as the white knight who's coming in, defending freedom of the press and stuff you to the politicians, then yeah, I'm sure you could get some not bad coverage.
Have you been into a lot of aggressive replying?
No, it's not my forte. I'm the best. A lot of people think that sort of tabloid reporters, particularly Sun reporters, are sort of these guys in trench coats going in terribly hard. The best reporters are, without exception, charmers. and they're connecting. I mean, there are many ways to get the story out of the person. You can threaten them and say, there's an easy way and there's a hard way of doing this, but this story's going into the paper tomorrow. Stick that in your pipe, smoke it, tell me everything you need to know. Or you can be a charmer and you can engage and connect. And the best reporters always are the charmers. And so this sort of aggressive reporting, News of the World used to do a lot of it, and I think it was staggeringly ineffective. Would not be my cup of tea at all. And I wouldn't advocate aggressive reporting. I'd just go in, be nice, be genuine, ask them about this delicately. By the way, on the matter of interviewing, just to sum up interviewing in, got to get onto the shark seat. To sum up interviewing in 1 minute, what even really seasoned reporters get wrong is they go in hard. You're going in to ask somebody about the murder or the bizarre stuff they've witnessed, and they go in hard. And they say, hi, I'm from The Sun. What happened with the murder? What did you see? This is completely the wrong way to interview. When you're interviewing anybody at all, you have to engage, first of all. You have to connect. Doing all this stuff that I've been telling you with the person at Tesco's, the person who serves you the coffee, you are first of all engaging, connecting, and only when you are fully connected can you start getting on, asking your boring questions about the murder. But that happens way down the line. You do not go in with questions first of all. You have to always be connected. One last question. Yes?
What originally made you want to go as journalist?
Well, I'd been travelling for a couple of years after I left university, and when I was at university there were no really media studies courses, and so I was doing a brilliant degree in theology, which was going to obviously stand me in very good stead on The Sun. And I'd been travelling, then I came back and I was working in a hotel, and my mum got fed up with this prodigy working in a hotel. She paid for me to take vocational guidance, where you do these tests and then at the end of it, after forking out 400 quid, which was a lot of money then, they give you an interview and they said, you should be a reporter. Oh God, loads of people had said I should be a reporter, but my mum having spent 400 quid on coming up with the answer from the oracle, I should be a reporter, I thought, okay, I will give it a go. And so I went to a secretarial college, learned shorthand, typing, and after several months of botched interviews, I got a job on a weekly paper. And then after 2 years on a weekly paper, I had the hunger, and that's when I wanted to start working on The Sun. Right, I hope I have answered most of your questions, but I gather we're off to the pub shortly, so if you have more questions, I'm in the chair for the first round. I'm paying for the first drinks, whatever you want. So we can carry on talking about that. There's a book out as well, which is all my distilled stuff of teaching journalism to journalists. I haven't really been teaching students much. I teach hacks on the job. I retrain them in how to do their job better. So there's a book out as well, Red Top, Tracking Read. If you don't like it, contact me, I can send you a full refund. And now, as a little one just for you, I'm going to tell you about the Sharks team. First of all though, I'm going to tell you about cage life. 2 months ago, I was in Istanbul, capital of the Ottoman Empire, which was based in Turkey and which lasted for about 500 years. And in Istanbul is the palace, Topkapi Saray, where all the sultans used to live. And in the harem in the palace were these cafes, these cages. And there is a great story about the cages of limitless sex and murder and intrigue. You're gonna love it. What happened with the sultans was that they had all these children, but the when the Sultan died, the top job did not necessarily go to the eldest son. It went to the most competent son, the most brilliant son, the guy who was going to expand the Ottoman Empire. What happened in reality was it just went to the biggest bastard. And what he would do on the night he got onto the throne was have all his brothers killed with a bowstring by the eunuchs. And this culminated in 1595 when Mehmet III comes to the throne and he has 19 of his brothers killed on the same night. And he has his mother killed too, for good measure. So that's that. Mehmet III comes to the throne 10 years later and he comes up with this crazy idea. Rather than killing all his brothers, well, he can't let them go, so he's going to stick them in what was known as cage life. These opulent cages with wonderful views, great furniture, all the food they can want, all the drink they want, and all these beautiful slave girls are being brought in from all over the empire just to service them. Limitless sex, but they're not allowed out of the cages. So these guys were stuck in these cages for about 40 years, living cage life. And when it was finished 100 years ago, they said it was barbaric. But actually, cage life exists right now. I know dozens of people who are still working on the tabloids, who are bored stupid with their jobs, who have no interest at all in news, yet who still feel constrained to keep on earning money there. There is hardly a single lawyer I know who is not sick of their jobs and wants to get out of it, but for whatever reason, got to pay the mortgage, that stuff like that. They feel they've got to keep on doing it. I know a millionaireess. She's got money coming out of her ears. Her wardrobe is the size of this room and she loves to walk around it, feeling all her lovely new clothes. She watches daytime TV, she goes shopping. She is living this dead cage life. And then I know two students about your age who are addicted to screens, computer games and telly. And to me, that also is a version of cage life. And you want to watch out for it, because now I'm going to tell you about the shark's teeth. A year ago, I was running a bizarre midlife crisis race in the Sahara, the Marathon des Sables. And I was very struck by the fact that 50 million years ago, sharks were swimming over the Sahara. These shark teeth that you have are obviously fossilized, turned to stone, but these came from a mile up in the Atlas Mountains in Morocco. Quite old. Humanoids from South Africa, only really developed 3 million years ago. This is 50 million. What this means to me is that if you have a really good run, you'll have 50 years before you retire. And these shark's teeth are 1 million times that. It's a reminder, we don't have long. I might seem like a complete codger to you because I'm 25 years older than you. But in fact, 25 years is gone like that. 50 is gone like that. And it also means, these shark's teeth, that we're certainly going to be a long time dead. One day you might be 50 million years dead and it might be your teeth that are being handed round a classroom. Now, you might think that that means it's all meaningless 50 million years on. Who the hell cares? It doesn't make any difference. But to me, these shark's teeth are a magnificent call to arms. You've got to go for it. You can't hang around. If at any stage you are feeling you're bored and you're in cage life, you've got to get out there. We don't have any time because, as we know, in a short time you will be dead and a long time dead too. So you've got to go for it. And in the very, very short term, what this means is that when you're at that party with that beautiful person, you go up to them. Hi. Have a shark's tooth. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Bill. There's some copies of the Red Top book if you'd like to purchase one of those and get it signed, then that's fantastic. And if you've already bought one, which many of you have, then I'm sure Bill will do a bit of signing now as well. £5.99 bargain price, reduced from £9.99 especially for you.
And we're off to the pub. For them that want it.